Good afternoon. We are in Today is 21st of September and we are in Toronto. To my right I have Mr. Sanjay Verma and to my left I have Mr. Sartaj Singh. We three are all here today to discuss a very important development that happened in Toronto. We had the noted historian Mr. Ramachandra Guha from India who visited Toronto, and he's currently on a tour in North America. And we were curious to go and attend to his meet, so we all three of us were at the meet. And this little discussion is about our response to what he said and we also analyze how much of what he said was factual. So Ramachandra Guha mentioned something about the Hindu population. I think there was a question from one of the attendees who asked if there's any risk for Hindu population in India, and he responded by saying, I know there is absolutely no risk for Hindu population in India. What is your opinion on that, Mr. Sanjay?
Yeah, in response to the change in the demographic population of India with respect to Hindus, it was surprising. Mr. Guha mentioned that there was no risk at all for the Hindu population for the next 500 years, which is kind of contrary to the fact which is being available with Wikipedia, wherein it says that in 1951 the population of Hindus was around 84%, and in 2011 it was around 79%. So there was a drop of 5%. Now, if you break it down further with respect to the states, in Kerala, the population was around 64% of Hindus in 1951, and it fell down to 54%. That was a 10% drop in the population. It goes even worse with respect to the northeastern states, where the population of Hindus is just 2%. And
so it's not even majority nowhere near majority.
I guess he misses the point that the recent stats indicate that in 7 states of India, the Hindus are in a minority position. So I think Mr. Guha's statement falls flat, and perhaps he needs to verify his facts again.
That's very interesting, and we had another input saying that the population fall of Hindus in India is due to 2 reasons. One is population decline per se, like the Hindus are having lesser number of children as compared to other faiths in India. And number 2, conversions are a major factor in India, conversions predominantly due to evangelism in India and Islamic conversions. And these are the reasons there seems to be a drop in the Hindu population of India. And as Sanjay ji said, why would a historian like Mr. Guha come to the University of Toronto and say something which is totally against facts which are available on the public domain? What was your motivation in coming to this speech by Mr. Guha, and what is your feedback, and what do you think should be the role of other agencies in this kind of situation, sir?
Yes. I never heard about Mr. Guha. I just came to know about him recently. When I saw this 4 lines of the Indian Republic by Mr. Guha in Monk School of Business at U of T, and the topic seemed very, very eye-catching.
Okay.
I was expecting some kind of really constructive criticism of India and some helpful hints how to improve those conditions. But when I went there, what I found was intellectual stone pelting of India, one after the another. For example, India is most reckless political experiment in human history.
Okay, so he said that India is the most reckless political
experiment in human history.
In human history.
And that is very unnatural nation.
Really unnatural
and
land.
65% people of India at the time of independence could not read and write. Which is really not right.
Okay.
So what I was thinking is, we all NRIs all over the world, not only in Canada and US or Switzerland or
Throughout the
Australia
world,
or
wherever,
New
yeah.
Zealand, everywhere, all the NRIs, they have worked very hard in last 40, 45 years to bring up the image of India from negative to positive. And people like Mr. Guha are trying to distort that image. So our job is to do what we can do to counteract this, and this has to be done. So we are asking maybe our people in our embassy, they should monitor such activities of people like them who are Indian citizens and living in India. To me, it's kind of Destrohi. So the Indian embassy should get together, they should inform their counterpart in India. It could be the Home Ministry or the any other agency which is involved. They should monitor these people and maybe start giving them some kind of warning.
Okay. So basically, what Mr. Sartaj Singh was saying is like staying in North American countries. We notice that if there's any protest by, say, any such activities by, say, other countries, like anybody protesting against or talking badly about Israel, for example, or any, we have noticed that those embassies jump into the picture and at least release a statement or do something, and we don't know what is the protocol with the Indian embassies. We really are not aware of it. And like Sartaj Singh said, we would want to ask you as to what is your stance on such negative propaganda about India from visiting intellectuals who come to countries like Canada. We notice an interesting aspect of debates happening in Toronto. Would you think that the voices that are being given a platform, is there a neutrality in their approach, or is there any kind of a preference of one voice or other voice in the academic and the intellectual circles of Toronto? What's your opinion, sir?
This has been worrisome for me for quite some time because the past few events which I have attended, I have noticed a pattern wherein anti-India voices mainly have been entertained. One of the events was wherein we heard Mr. Guha, giving statements which were kind of anti-India in nature. And there was a previous event where Mr. Jangam, protested against the invite being given to Makarand Paranjpe, and his event was cancelled by the administration. So there seems to be lack of democratic freedom of speech, and it would be nice for the academic circles to have a balanced approach and create a fertile debate between the two sides. That would be my answer.
Yeah. So I think, like Sanjay ji said, this has been a consistent trend, not just in the last few years, for like almost 10 years or so. And that is an area of worrisome. Why would one segment of the voice being given more prominence to the other prominence? Are we not in a democracy? Should not everybody be given an equal platform? Why we would want to ask the people involved is that one segment of voice is being given prominence over the other. You were sitting through the entire session of
Yes.
Minister Guha's. Did you notice anything interesting?
Yes, of course. When Mr. Guha came, he said he was going to discuss the four lines of the Indian Republic among the friends of India. That's exactly his word. But I saw him hugging Mr. Harun
Siddiqui of Toronto
of Toronto Star,
Okay.
and who is not a friend of India. We know it for last 25 years. He has been saying all kinds of bad things about India. So was it some kind of friendly hug, or was it because they both stand on the same platform? That was kind of thing I noticed. I wanted to speak with Mr. Guha about this, but he was busy in signing his books because that's, I think I got the idea, is India bashing is so that he can sell more books.
Okay, okay. Well, so thank you, sir. I think this is very interesting. What Sartaj Singh sir was saying is Mr. Harun Siddiqui, over the past couple of decades, has consistently belted out articles which definitely do not sound India friendly. Now, Mr. Ramachandra Guha now seems to be. Should we assume that Mr. Ramachandra Guha is on the same page with Mr. Harun Siddiqui? So that's very disturbing, actually. Why would somebody who has an India badge, India label, come over here and talk about things that are not India friendly? Mr. Guha calls himself a historian. He defines himself as an historian of India. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Based upon previous discussion on the population and demographic changes in India, Mr. Guha's explanation with respect to the population of Hindus coming down was incorrect, and there were many other inconsistencies which on further introspection can be proven to be incorrect with respect to Mr. Guha. And I think the only fact he was right about was the trivia as a historian that Mahatma Gandhi was the father of the nation, was suggested by Subhash Chandra Bose.
Okay, okay. So, Sanjay, you're telling that as per from the historian perspective, he's short on facts on many aspects. We request the viewers to dig the facts for themselves. You dig it up and you'll be able to find it. But I totally endorse what Sanjay ji said, that perhaps Mr. Ramachandra Guha could be defined as a trivia historian. That's a very interesting terminology. So, Mr. Guha, you want to respond to us, or would you be the trivia historian? Did you see anything good and about Mr. Guha's presentation or style of narration? What are your observations on that note, sir?
Mr. Guha has been professor in a number of places,
Okay.
and he's very good in speaking.
Okay.
But what I found is he cleverly mixes the facts with the anti-India message, which is very, very disturbing.
Mm-hmm. And would you think that how is the academic circles over here responding to this mixture of partial facts about India and an anti-India rhetoric? Do you think they're being welcomed here?
I think number of people in North America don't really know the actual facts about India. India is a highly democratic country, it's flourishing. In the last 17 years, we have come all the way from having nothing, which was taken by the Britishers. We were looted, and they left us in very poor condition. Now, see where we have come.
So what Mr. Sartaj Singh is saying is that Mr. Ramachandra Guha was very cleverly mixing facts with anti-India messages. And what is disturbing is that the academic circles of Canada and Toronto, they seem to be providing a platform for this kind of anti-India messaging. That is truly worrying, right?
It is.
Thank you for your valuable time in coming to the studio and talking about this big presentation. I think your inputs will serve as a good rebuttal to what Mr. Ramachandra Guha's theme of presentation. So my personal observations in that is that Mr. Guha was introduced to the audience by the University of Toronto professors as being a Brahmin. Now, why would University of Toronto bring in the caste factor when introducing a person? Now, this is something truly disturbing, and that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is, on a personal note, Mr. Guha did not sound scholarly at all. He sounded being on the edge. He sounded like somebody was pushing him to say something. He sounded like he had to speak to please somebody. There was nothing really scholarly about it. And the other concern is when people like Guha, who do not have a scholarly platform and who are peddling facts, semi-facts with anti-India messages, and if they are being represented on the University of Toronto, I keep wondering what is the message that is going to Indian students who are studying at University of Toronto. Now, this is something a very serious thing. It's not a matter of joke, and I'm sure that this is something which the audience will think over, and hopefully in the near future, we hope University of Toronto will bring in both voices. And nothing wrong in being opposing to the people can have opposing ideas, but we hope, like as Sanjay Verma said, they bring both voices to the platform. And we want to thank the viewers for watching this show. And thanks once again, Sanjay Verma ji and Sartaj Singh ji.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.